All right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, I know that it has almost become popular to make fun of the things that Anthony Smith says, and honestly, most of the time for good reason. He does tend to say some crazy stuff, okay? We're going to go over a couple of those before we get to what he just said recently regarding Alex Pereira and his move to 205 pounds. I just want to say, though, I am not here to just, like, blatantly shit on Anthony Smith. You guys, if you want to in the comments, feel free, but I have at least forever, most likely, a modicum of respect for Anthony Smith because, unlike Aljamain Sterling, he could have been the first person in UFC history to ever win a title by way of disqualification. He chose not to. And honestly, seeing the way that Aljamain Sterling's been treated throughout his entire title reign, I think he may have made the right decision there. But it was very respectable, and I will forever remember that. You know what I mean? No matter what he said after the fact. Now, I want to just go over a couple crazy things that he has said in the recent to not so recent past, just to build up to what he recently said about Alex Pereira. It seems as though, in my opinion, now this is just pure speculation, that his takes have gotten like progressively worse throughout time, progressively closer together throughout time, and I think that it's because of his newly found speaking roles that he engages in so often, like being the UFC analyst and also his role on the Believe You Me podcast. I think that he's grown to know how to just fill in time with utter bullshit, and so he's good at just spewing out shit and creating an answer that could have been 30 seconds long into 3.5 minutes, because that's just the job of podcasters sometimes and analysts. You know what I mean? Sometimes they have time they need to fill, and he also speaks very well, so there's that as well. And maybe he wants to prove a point to everybody that he can still fucking speak well and he's not totally brain damaged as of yet. But the most famous one, or one of the most famous ones I can think of off the top of my head, which was almost I think the worst or first worst take that he had ever had, was famously telling Luke Thomas and Brian Camel from Morning Combat that Jon Jones is not really that good.
I'm going to get roasted online for this, but he's not that good.
That's an interesting quote. Yeah,
he's pretty fucking good.
And Luke Thomas, credit to him, I can't stand the guy, but credit to him, has every reason in the world to hate Jon Jones. And he looked at him and just kind of went, yeah, he's pretty fucking good. Sorry about that weird movement there. I've injured my rib. I don't know what happened. Anyways, he even pushed back on that because it's utter bullshit to say that. Look, I can't stand Jon Jones. I think he's a fucking steroid cheat. I think he's a wife beater, and I think he's one of the worst people to ever step foot in that octagon. But his skills are undeniable. He's finished opponents, in almost every single way possible, and he beat the ever-living fuck out of you, Anthony Smith. So that was a weird one, okay? Just recently in an interview, I can't remember who it was that was interviewing him, but he was speaking about his recent rematch with Ryan Spann that it takes place on Saturday morning, that if he had Ryan Spann's athleticism, he would have been the champion a long time ago.
Athletically, he's fucking amazing. I mean, he's big, he's fast. If I had 20% of the natural gifts that Ryan Spann had, I would have been a world champion a long time ago.
Which I thought was insane, okay? Because Ryan Spann does not have the athletic prowess of like a Parker Porter, where you could just wholeheartedly and say and believe that if you had those athletic abilities, you would be champion. He's not Parker Porter. He's Ryan Spann. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? He's not that great of an athlete. What the fuck? Also, dude, Anthony Smith has a very, very, very high opinion of his skills. And, that's not a horrible thing for a fighter to have, because you have to be confident in your skills. But with all due respect, Anthony Smith, Glover Teixeira, while the majority of that fight took place on the ground, Glover beating the fuck out of you, knocking out your teeth and all of that shit, that whole situation started by him breaking your orbital bone on the feet. Do you know what I mean? Glover Teixeira, the guy is not a striker. His game plan against almost every single opponent is to get them to the ground so he can either smash or strangle. Okay, it is what it is. He's not a striker. He broke your fucking eye. Okay, hurt you horribly, took you down and smashed you. Like, I get being confident in your abilities, but I think that there's a fine line between confident and delusional, and I think Anthony Smith may have crossed that on more times than one. Now, we're going to get to what he said about Alex Pereira, okay?
You've been flourishing on the analytical side. What was your takeout from the Jan fight with Alex?
Well, it was a really close fight. I think probably 50% of the people, had Alex, and I think the other half probably had Jan. I thought that Alex looked pretty good, and to be fair, I thought Jan looked pretty good as well. He was able to do a lot of things that Jan Blachowicz typically does to be successful. I think that Alex had a little bit of an eye-opening moment, though, at 205. He's not the large, scary monster that he was at middleweight. He's a fairly normal dude. I don't think that Alex Pereira is more powerful and explosive than an Alexander Rakic.
He says that he thinks Alex Pereira had a very eye-opening experience, as if he's a fucking mind reader. At UFC, I can't remember what the fuck it was off the top of my head. That's really embarrassing, but whatever. When he fought Jan Blachowicz in the co-main event, how can I forget that? Was it UFC 291? Jesus Christ, dude. Either way. What are you talking about? Okay, Anthony Smith. First of all, the big scary monster thing. Now, I don't know if he's ever had the honor of standing next to Poatan, okay? And yes, I'm a Alex Pereira super fan. No, not a super fan, but I am an Alex Pereira fan. I was advocating for him to come into the UFC, to come into mixed martial arts, period, while I was watching him over at Glory. I was very excited when he made the transition. I am a big fan, full disclosure, okay? That's out of the way now. Alex Pereira won the interim light heavyweight championship at Glory with a left hook. He essentially murdered the guy, okay? So to say that this dude's not powerful at 205 is quite strange to me. And that he's not a big scary monster. Look, he looked pretty fucking big compared to Jan Blachowicz to me. Not to mention, dude, Anthony Smith, I know you lie about your height, okay? And I don't like calling guys out on this shit because I don't think it really matters, but Petr Yan is not 5'7" if Aljamain Sterling is 5'7", okay? It's just not happening. Anthony Smith, you are not 6'4", because there are so many fucking pictures of you standing next to John Jones, who is also 6'4". Do you know what I mean? So I know that you lie about your height, okay? But Alex Pereira, the guy who makes Tyson Fury look half a foot shorter than he claims to be, is not lying about his height. I would imagine if you go and stand next to the guy, he's still pretty fucking big for 205, okay? Now, in the power department, he and I'll say this too, to be fair to Anthony Smith, okay, because I don't want to just shit all over him. He did say that Alex Pereira, because of his striking acumen and because of his technique, he will always be special. But in terms of power and strength, he seems like just an ordinary guy. Okay, great, dude. He then says that, I don't think he's more powerful than an Alexander Rakic. And look, I know there are Alexander Rakic fans in this viewership, okay? I am a fan of Alexander Rakic. I like watching him fight. I was very high on him when he was, making his way through the ranks of the light heavyweight division. I am still high on him. I think that he has a pretty high ceiling. However, okay, and I'm not trying to shit on Alexander Rakic or discredit him at all, but we are going to go over some of the statistics regarding knockouts. All right, let's do that, okay? Alexander Rakic, according to Tapology, has 9 KOs, okay, which is pretty goddamn impressive considering he's got 14 victories, right? That sounds very, very good. That's a very high finishing rate. And if I'm not mistaken, he might even have a submission or two mixed in there. So the vast majority of the time, this dude's getting his opponents out of there before the final bell. Okay, great. Now, if we go and look at, though, however, right, his UFC fights, the fights in the UFC, the fights against top level competition, how many KOs does he have? He has fucking 2, dude. 2. He has 2. Do you want to know who they're against, dude? Jimmy Manoa. Jimmy, let me be your poster boy, Manoa, okay? And fucking Devin Clark. Okay, dude, great. 7 of his knockouts came before the UFC. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. And that wouldn't be so bad if his opponents that he was facing outside of the UFC had a bit better records, okay? Because if you look at his opponents pre-UFC, first of all, 2 of the dudes literally have NA, non-applicable, as their records, which is like fucking hell, dude. How horrible were they? Okay. One of the dudes was 2-18. 2-18. One dude was 0-3. One dude was making his debut, and Rakic had like fucking 5 or 6 pro fights at this point. One guy was 15-10. That's the best one. 15-10. Do you know what I mean? That's a female record. What the fuck are we talking about? So it's not like Alexander Rakic is just flatlining dudes at 205 either. Do you know what I mean? And while that might be part of his point, Alex Pereira has more finishes in the UFC than Alexander Rakic in about half the fights, man. He's had, what, 6 fights in the UFC? He's got 3 finishes, okay, against UFC. I'm having a hard time breathing, boys. My rib is fucked. I don't know what's going on, but we're going to keep going, okay? Now, if there was a reason that Alex Pereira didn't look as powerful as he once did at middleweight, that might have something to do with the fact that he was fighting aside from Alex Pereira and maybe Jamal Hill. You know what I mean? Honestly, I would be interested to see Jamal Hill fight Jan Blachowicz, not because I think that that's the fight that should happen, but because Jan Blachowicz is such a good fucking striker. And after watching, if we're basing Jamal Hill's striking ability off of his performance against Glover Teixeira, he is also an incredible striker. But Alex Pereira may not have looked as big and scary and powerful at 205 because he was fighting the other best striker by a country fucking mile in your division, dude. Jan Blachowicz is incredible at striking. He gets so downplayed. I don't fucking get it, dude. I don't care if he's 40 years old. He is, without a doubt, I don't know why I said it like that, without a doubt, the second best striker in the light heavyweight division aside from Alex Pereira. And by a lot. Do you know what I mean? His striking abilities are leagues above Anthony Smith's. They just are, dude. So, Jan Blachowicz, being defensively responsible, being as technical as he is on the feet, not allowing Alex Pereira to actually land a flush left hook to his chin, made him appear less powerful. If you don't have striking defense like Jan Blachowicz does, watch the fuck out, my guy, okay? Because he will put you to sleep at 205. I don't understand it. A lot of the power also, because he goes on about his technique after the fact, right? Like, a lot of his power comes from his technique. Dude, this is whack. Don't know what's going on. Regardless. It was a very strange comparison to me. You know what I mean? He picks a guy that beats him essentially by grapple fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like Alexander Rakic flatlined Anthony Smith. It was a weird comparison in my opinion, man. And to say that he's not powerful and he doesn't look powerful at 205 because he fought the best technical striker available at 205, who's going to be the hardest to hit clean, right? Who has some of the best defense in terms of stand-up in your entire division. The only other guy to outstrike Israel Adesanya in the UFC at all is Jan Blachowicz. Like, imagine sticking Pereira on the feet next to a guy that isn't, like, do you know what, that isn't Jan Blachowicz. And now look, there are bad matchups for Alex Pereira at 205, and I'm not ever going to fucking doubt that, right? Like, if a guy's super grappling, like, Magomed Ankalaev is probably a horrible matchup for Alex Pereira. He would have to catch him on an entry, kind of like what we saw Sean O'Malley do against Aljamain Sterling, but I don't understand how he can try and say a guy's not... He's seen him fight in MMA once at light heavyweight, and it is literally against the division's best striker aside from Alex Pereira. Do you know what I mean? And look, man, considering Anthony Smith is another middleweight, it's a weird one coming from him, dude, because Alex Pereira was a massive middleweight. Anthony Smith did not look like a massively giant middleweight. Do you know what I mean? Like, he definitely was bigger than your average middleweight, but he wasn't the biggest middleweight we've ever seen. And Alex Pereira's size, power, strength, in my opinion, absolutely translates to 205 pounds. I thought it was a really weird statement. I think Anthony Smith does this weird thing where he feels the need to, like, diminish other fighters' abilities to try to big up himself, dude. You're not Parker Porter, okay? You're just not, bro. You never will be. I'm sorry. And I don't know what to say. I really think that the podcasting, the analytical work and all that stuff has made him accustomed to speaking a little bit more. And now he just maybe doesn't know when to stop. Okay? That might be it now. I've had that problem myself. Sometimes I'll be ranting on a fucking video like this one where I have to cut out just me saying it's a fucking weird one over and over again. But let me know what you guys think, because I thought this was just a strange take from Anthony Smith. And something else that he does is like he couches his language in so many different ways so that it doesn't sound like he's actually saying something that bad or disparaging. But if you kind of read in between the lines and just cut out like the fucking, you know, the sweet core of the fucking onion and just peel back all the layers, you kind of see that he is being disparaging. So I just fucking rattled my whole desk, dude. I'm having a real tough time with this goddamn rant. Picks video comes out tomorrow morning. Like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know if you guys think Anthony Smith is losing his goddamn mind in the comment sections below. I'll see you at the next one. Bye bye.